Vanakkam from India.
Bonjour from Ontario.
Oh my goodness, it feels like it's been forever since you and I have been here. We've had holidays, we've had some of the pre-recordings, and now finally we are live. And yet, I'm all the way in India.
That's right.
Doing
You're
a
on the other
conference
side of the
out here.
planet.
Shout out to District 120 for bringing me out here to be their keynote speaker for their district conference. I am so happy to be here. And welcome to Great Convos, where we always say, whether you agree or disagree, you can always find great combos. I'm Roger Caesar, and that gentleman over there.
Hi, I'm Alexandre Matt. Roger, yeah, it is really good to see you, even if you're halfway across the world. And even when you're not halfway across the world, you still seem so far away, because we usually meet just like this online. Thank goodness for the online world.
Far away from me.
We'll have to do the dance after.
Yeah.
Roger, who do we have on today?
Oh man, we've got an exciting person coming on. I first met this gentleman when we headed to China. We were a part of an organization. We were going there and being a part of this great organization to work with them. And man, when I sat on the bus heading from the airport, it was about an hour and a half ride, and him and I started talking, and it was such a great conversation. Learned so much about him. He is just a dynamic person and dynamic individual, and I wanted so badly to have him on the show. We just had to work out the details, and he's finally here. So, man, listen, without further ado, as they say, I want to bring on the incomparable Paul Pleau.
Nice to see you, gentlemen.
What's going on, man?
Nice to see you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast, and I am very much looking forward to having some great combos with you.
Yes,
well, thanks so much
before we get started, hold on. Before we get started, I want to shout out to all of our loyal listeners. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. Thank you for joining us. Please put in the chat, say hello to Paulie if you can.
Hello, everybody. Hello, world.
Paulie, thank you so much for being with us today. Roger told me about you, and I thought, well, I guess I better know who this guy is. I did a search. I found two different Paul Pleuas, and it turned out they were both the same person. The first one was a motocross racer who got an unfortunate, tragic accident in 2012, putting a stop, or at least a temporary stop, to all his activities. And then the other one was a photographer and videographer. And I thought, okay, which one are we interviewing? It turns out you are actually both, and your specialization, or one of your specializations in photography and video, is motocross and racing. It's not just motocross and motorcycle, but also racing with, what do you call it? Four-wheelers. So really interesting to have you on, Paulie. But without going into all the details, because anybody can find your TEDx talk online on YouTube, just talk about us from the point of view, or from the starting point of your accident in 2012. What did you think that you lost forever? I mean, you lost a lot of physical ability, but was there something else?
Well, I appreciate the introduction, sir. So I'm 31 years young, and I feel like I've lived multiple lifetimes, to be honest. I feel like I'm 22 years old in my brain, and my body feels like it's 65, just with the, countless injuries and surgeries that I've had. So short story long, I raced motorcycles growing up for 11 years, from the age of 6 to 16. Just before my 17th birthday, I was racing on the largest stage in the world, ready to make my US professional debut, when unfortunately I had a severe crash. I ended up breaking my back and paralyzing myself. I suffered a traumatic brain injury, so I had bleeding and scarring on my brain. I had an incomplete spinal cord injury, a T5 level incomplete spinal cord injury, and I've got a T5 to T9 fusion in my spine. So basically, I have over a foot of titanium holding my spine together. Originally, when I had my surgery, I had my injury, I was given less than 2% chance of recovering any sensation or function from my chest down. So even though I was basically a professional athlete and racing my entire life from the age of 6, the doctors gave me a wheelchair brochure and said, pick your favorite color and you will return to school, graduate with your friends, and that'll be your life moving forward, which to me is unacceptable, was unacceptable, and is not the future that I envisioned for myself. Certainly with something as severe as a traumatic brain injury and spinal cord injury, I lost obviously all the sensation and all the function from my chest down. I also lost the feeling of my bladder, or the feeling of my hunger and thirst. I lost the function and the sensation of my bladder and bowel. A lot of internal organ injuries and damages and just, sensory issues, function issues. Still to this day, it's a constant battle. But really what I sort of lost was my sense of identity. At the beginning, it wasn't so much of a loss in the sense of my first immediate thoughts when I was given my prognosis and this wheelchair brochure was, okay, what has not been done by somebody in a wheelchair? What can I accomplish? What can I be the first to do? Has somebody in a wheelchair done a backflip? I would like to do that. Has somebody gone drifting? I would like to go drifting. Has somebody, done crossed the deserts on a motorcycle in a wheelchair? I would like to do that. I was constantly searching for something that was unachievable, was impossible, or deemed impossible, and I wanted to be the first person to do that. So it was very difficult to sort of wrap my head around the fact that I would be in a wheelchair, but at the same time, I never accepted that prognosis. I never accepted my future as a wheelchair user. I always saw myself in my mind's eye. I would be walking, whether it's with a cane, with a walker. I was always going to be walking, and I was always going to be living a full life.
So you saying that, and man, when I heard the story, Alizon, I was floored. Sitting in that vehicle and listening to this story and going through it. And obviously we went through detail, like real detail about it. But Paulie, knowing that you went through that, knowing that it was very traumatic, and I wouldn't be able to comprehend what you went through in that moment and what you still go through to this day. Take us through that next level where you're in this wheelchair and you are looking for something to do. What did you end up doing? And talk about it from what you had told me. What did you end up doing and still being real good at?
So my entire focus was on my rehabilitation, my recovery. So my first question certainly was, what is my physio, OT, PT? What kind of therapies can you offer me? At the time, the hospital didn't even offer me any sort of physiotherapy, any sort of occupational therapy. I, even hit my head so hard, I kind of had this foreign accent syndrome where I absorbed my parents' Polish accent. And I obviously went to a French immersion school growing up, so I had a bit of a French accent as well. But It was so thick that when my nurses came to take care of me, they would ask me, oh, when did you come to Canada? Like, when did you move here? And I was like, what do you mean? I was born here. I grew up here. I went to school here. Like, I am Canadian. And they're like, your accent's so thick. It's as thick as your parents. And so even like working with a speech language pathologist, like the brain is such a fickle, such an interesting thing. I hit my head so hard, it almost hit the reset button, where dealing with my parents and being surrounded by my parents with such accents, I just absorbed that, and that sort of became my normal. Even like the feeling of hunger and thirst, and I don't want to get too sidetracked, but just simply the fact of like the brain is such an interesting thing that before my injury, I had just eaten lunch. And so when I had my injury, my brain was sort of stuck, and it's still something that I struggle with to this day, where it's in the cycle of you just ate, you're full, you're okay. So I'll have a couple bites to eat and I immediately feel full, which is perplexed many doctors for many, many years. Eventually it was deemed that it was a traumatic brain injury issue and not a spinal cord injury issue. And even now it's been 13, 14 years, it's still something that I struggle with. But my first thoughts was obviously I need to get out of this wheelchair. I need to teach my body how to walk again. So it's very much like that scene from Kill Bill where she's dragged herself out of the hospital, her lifeless body. She's put herself in her vehicle and she's concentrating and sending that signal to move your toe, move your big toe,
right.
Move your big toe, just over and over. So that was sort of the same idea that I had, just obviously in the hospital bed. And I mean, it took It took days, it took weeks, it took a long time for me just to be able to have an uncontrolled spasm of my toe. But again, obviously I had to return to life. So obviously with my occupational therapy, speech language pathology, physiotherapy, all this, everything that I could, whether it's supplementation, acupuncture, nutritional, immunology, everything that I was doing, I still had to return to life. So I had an urge to continue racing, but at the time, being a wheelchair user, it's a little bit impossible, and the funds were not there to buy hand controls, to outfit a vehicle to do these things. So I pursued wheelchair sports. I started with a little bit of wheelchair tennis. I was very, very fond of that. I had a lot of fun with that. I made a lot of great connections, and then I got involved in wheelchair basketball. Started becoming a little bit more successful in wheelchair basketball, to the point that I was invited to play for the junior Canadian Paralympic team. I was given the opportunity to move to Toronto to live and train on the UFT campus, and then to represent our country internationally. So it was an absolute dream come true, and to be able to play at the Paralympic level was astonishing. And it was a dream come true to represent our country internationally. So I never really lost that mindset of sport, and it was really helpful in meeting other people with injuries, whether they were born with CP, spina bifida, or they had, car accidents or sort of surgeries or anything like that as their life went on, and they found themselves with either an amputation or spinal cord injury or traumatic brain injury, anything like that. But it was really that strength of community that really helped bring more life into me and allowed me to see another world. And I must say, without going into too much detail, that those people that I met in that wheelchair community are by far the strongest individuals I have ever met. I have goosebumps just thinking about them, because we were traveling abroad, and I'm talking a wheelchair user pushing a wheelchair basketball in front of them with two duffel bags, basketballs in a bag in front of them, behind them. They're traveling via train to go to a different province, to a different country. And when you go to hold the door open for them, they say, no, I got this. You go through, I'll hold the door open for you. So again, incredible strength of these individuals, and these are lifelong friends and lifelong memories that I will remember and cherish forever.
Paul, you said you were invited to join the team. Did you join the team?
Yes, sir. I played for a number of months, but my desire for motorsports was overwhelming. And so I unfortunately had to, retire myself from wheelchair basketball because I had an overwhelming desire to compete with able-bodied people. I did not want to associate myself to be associated with a wheelchair sport, because my constant pursuit of returning to function, returning to my feet, that was a bit of a hindrance to me. So as much as I love that experience, as much as I love those people, it was just not aligning with my mental trajectory and sort of where I wanted to see myself in the future. I did not want to play wheelchair sports as much as I enjoyed it and as much as I wanted to represent our country, but I really wanted to return to racing, whether that was 2 wheels or 4 wheels. I wanted to use no assisted devices, and I wanted to compete with able-bodied people.
Did you get any pushback from the wheelchair community? Or criticism?
It's interesting that you asked that, and actually I applaud you for that, because you're one of the few to actually ask that. I personally don't fit into either community. So it's, number one, let's just, from the beginning, I was born here in Canada, but my first language was Polish. My second language was English and French learning at the same time when I went to grade 1. I very much am a Polish person. I'm a Polak. I think in Polish, I eat Polish, I dream in Polish. My cuisine is Polish, our traditions are Polish. So I always say that I'm the most foreign domestic you'll ever meet. All right, I'm a Canadian, but I view myself as Polish. The same thing with my injury. I am a part of the disabled community because I have a spinal cord injury. I still have it to this day. Obviously, it's something that doesn't go away. I have rods in my spine that impede a lot of my function and cause me a lot of problems. I have a traumatic brain injury. I still have symptoms that I deal with from that, but I'm not a wheelchair user. So I don't necessarily fit into the wheelchair community because I'm not a wheelchair user. I don't necessarily fit into the able-bodied community because I still have a laundry list of neurological damage and symptoms that I deal with on an everyday basis. So I don't really fit into either community because I'm an outlier in both. Certainly my teammates and my coaches were disappointed that I did not want to continue and that I was looking to pursue other sports. They were certainly supportive of that and being an outlier, regardless of, I was already walking at the time. So I was Not to say that there's not people who play wheelchair sports that aren't walkers or don't have that ability, but they were eager to see what I could achieve with my new pursuit, but they were obviously disappointed because I was a great team player and I was successful and I brought a lot of value to our team. So as much as they were supportive, they were just a little bit saddened by my departure. But at the end of the day, I see their success online. I still follow them. I haven't seen them in a number of years, but I, commented on a bunch of their photos and videos that they've shared. And of course, I would love to be able to support them in person as well. But it was a difficult thing to go through because it was really going out into the unknown. Even just my ability to return to racing, I had to pass a medical exam, 2 in-car evaluations, a written exam to get my road racing license to be able to race cars. So I had to get my reflexes tested, my sight tested, my strength, my coordination tested. Like I had to be able to pass all these tests to be able to even just go racing, which at the time when I departed on this adventure or embarked on this adventure, I was not in a physical place to be able to pass these tests. But over the years and with my rehabilitation, I got to the point that I was able to race with no assisted devices. So it was almost like going out into the unknown.
Is there anybody that you will say right now that you can credit or has helped you to get over that hump? So many difficult moments in your life in terms of what you've been through, but is there anybody that you can immediately say, hey, if it weren't for this person, if it weren't for that person, I don't know if I would be where I am now?
Without a doubt, it would be my sister and my parents. I don't have any other family here in Canada, to be honest. All of my family is back home in Poland. I have an uncle in Australia, and that's it. So from the very beginning of my life, I always understood the importance of family, and my success in racing was not possible without my parents and their sacrifices and their commitment. Right? My sister was my trainer, my nutritionist. Mom was the cooker and the cleaner and the glue that held our family together. My dad was the driver and the mechanic. And the same thing goes with my injury. I mean, my parents were bringing home food, not bringing home, sorry. My parents were bringing to the hospital food. They were bringing supplements. They were bringing medicines. We were trying different therapies. They were bringing me to Japanese acupuncturists, to Chinese, manual manipulator, like hands-on osteopaths. We were doing anything and everything that anybody had suggested. And thanks to my sister and thanks to both my parents, they are the reason why I am walking. They are the reason why I haven't taken my own life. They are the reason why I have purpose in my life. Because even at, my lowest, they always were there for me. They always loved me. They always supported me. And even something as simple as this, the older that I get, the more that I sympathize and the more love that I have for my parents as to how much trauma I must have caused them and how many years of their lives I must have taken with all of my injuries and all of my stresses that I've caused them. But the fact that they were able to remain so calm and so dedicated, their son is in the hospital, paralyzed from the chest down, no sensation, no function, is deemed to be in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. So my parents thought to themselves, well, if he can't feel temperature and if he can't feel sharpness and if he can't feel, proprioception where his legs are in space, where your arms are in space, they decided that they would go outside into the snow, take a bucket of snow, bring it into my room. They would take a bucket of warm water and they would dip my feet into the cold snow and into the warm water. And they would tell me, Paulie, this is cold, this is hot. They would take a needle and they say, this is sharp. See, this is sharp. This is dull. This is a cotton swab. We're taking your toes. Which toe am I touching? Toe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now think about which toe I'm touching. Is it up? Is it down? Is your knee bent? Is your knee straight? All of these simple things allowed my body and allowed my nervous system to relearn proprioception, sensation, function, being able to just simply, teach my body not only from the top down, but from the bottom up as well, to rebuild that connection of that damaged and injured spinal cord. So without my parents, without my sister, I would not be here today to be able to speak with you. I'm not sure if I would be here at all, given the severity of the situation and obviously all of the mental struggles that are included in something like this. But I mean, truly, I am beyond grateful and beyond blessed to be able to have them. Not only were they supportive in multiple of my careers, but also they are the reason why I am able to walk today, and they are the reason why I am here today. And they give me purpose to continue pushing, to continue striving for more.
One thing that really resonated with me in your TEDx talk was the contribution of your sister, that she helped you visualize. Now, a lot of times we hear visualization is important to reach a goal. So you visualize the end result, the final goal, but your approach was different thanks to your sister. How was it different?
Yes, sir. So I learned visualization techniques when I was still racing motorcycles. So I come from an immigrant family that doesn't come from much money. So we grew up in the city. My closest track was an hour and a half away to be able to go practice. So my fellow competitors are living on properties with 40, 50, 60, 100 acres. They have multiple tracks on their property. They're homeschooled. They get to ride and live all day, every day. Whereas myself, I had to drive 3 hours a day to be able to just go practice. So in that time, I had learned that I need to be as efficient and as optimized as possible to be able to make the most of my time. Seeing as I'm still going to French immersion school, my dad has to pick me up, drive me an hour and a half. We have to spend whatever time we have to practice there, come back. So in my racing career, I learned that it's not only just important to visualize the success that you are going to see, but it is also important to visualize the obstacles that you are going to see and how you are going to overcome these obstacles. When I was racing, I would be sitting on the starting line before the start, and I would be visualizing every moment, from the way that, I'm sitting up on the bike, where my weight is, what gear I'm in, where I'm releasing the clutch, as I'm shifting through the gears, the depth of the soil, the moisture in the soil, whether it's dusty, sandy, hard pack, all these different types of things. And obviously, as my competition got more intense, I would visualize not getting a good start, for example, and then having to work through these other riders. And so I know where my strengths and weaknesses were on the track. And so therefore, I would imagine, okay, I'm trying to challenge this person on this part of the track. I'm able to find different lines. I'm able to, work through obstacles. I'm able to become, I'm able to find better lines so that I can actually make, passes on these other racers. So that really prepared me for this spinal cord injury, traumatic brain injury, because I was able to not only, think about, okay, well, I want to walk again. Well, what does that mean to be able to walk again? I need to be able to first, move my digits. I need to move my ankle. I need to be able to have the strength to, lock out my knee. I need to be able to contract my core to be able to hold my torso appropriately. So through my visualization practices, I was able to go through and actually see and feel the signal being sent from my brain going down into my spinal cord, hitting my spinal cord injury level, and then it would get stuck there. And it would get really hot and burning. It was almost like nerve pain. Obviously, it was nerve pain. I had, a spinal cord injury, neurological damage. So, it was, days and weeks of that signal getting stuck at that specific point, until one day I felt this fiery flame shooting down past that. And it was just like a sporadic, just the electricity getting shot past that point. And I thought to myself, okay, well, we have success. Now we've made it past that point. Now let's train going further and further down until I can get it down to my toes, and I can start by wiggling my toes. So, my sister was a huge part of this, because we would, she did her undergrad in kinesiology. She did her master's in biomechanics, did her PhD in biomedical engineering. So she's been very well versed and very well trained in human optimization, in training, in getting the body to be as efficient as possible, to overcoming injuries and obstacles. And so, I broke a lot of bones while racing and did a lot of rehab and PT for those injuries. And all of these things prepared me to be able to take on my final quest, which was unfortunately overcoming paralysis. And I do think that if I were to go back in time, I wouldn't be able to change anything in my life, because all of these injuries, whether it was previously broken backs, broken necks, knee reconstructive surgeries, broken ribs, broken fingers, hands, wrists, elbows, and knees, all of these things that I had to overcome prepared me to be able to take on this final frontier. And again, with the help of my sister and my parents, they were in my corner from the very first moment. And again, I am utterly grateful for them and for their support.
And this visualization of every step, it's not only for recovering from an injury, but Roger, this could help for any big goals that you have. A lot of people are able to and do visualize success, but very few visualize the effort, those little steps. Roger?
Mhm. Yeah, no question about it. And I think this is a great way to segue from what you have done from that perspective, visualizing and seeing things from a different perspective, to the fact that now you actually go behind a lens and do it as well, and have a keen eye when it comes to the camera. So you're not only just racing the four wheelers and the two wheelers, but now you've taken that one step further and have went behind the lens of a camera and have visualized seeing things from a different perspective. Now we don't got a lot of time left as we're short right now, but just a quick talk about that right now.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate your kind words. I have always been I've always been fascinated with cameras, with photos, with videos. Obviously, coming from an immigrant family, my family has always taken a mass amount of photos and videos to send back home to share with family back home. But yeah, I mean, I've wanted to be involved on the racetrack any kind of way, whether it's being a racer or whether it's being a photographer, videographer, and filmmaker. But with visualization, with something like this as well, it's obviously goes beyond just the physical. It goes into my business side of things as well. So when I'm shooting weddings, when I'm shooting motorsports events, or whether I'm shooting construction, visualization is a huge part of it, because again, I'm visualizing what I want the final product to be, certainly, but also what is it going to take for me to get the shots that I need.
Right.
So for example, this past weekend, I was shooting with Yamaha Canada and the Yamaha Pro Racing Team MX101 in Ottawa. And the same thing, like I understand what the director wants as his final product. And so I now need to go and go through, how do I get the shots that I need to complete the vision? So I need to be on the inside of these corners. I need to get to here. I need to see what kind of foreground depth can I create?
Right.
What kind of background
Right.
do I want? Do I want the branding and the
Right.
logos in the background? Do I want, the
Mhm.
female racer in the front and the other former racers in the back? So there's a lot that goes into it, but it is truly helpful because it allows your body to be ready for what you're going to take on, right? Our mind and our body is
Wow.
sometimes a little bit disconnected. So when we're using our visualization practices, we're basically prepping our body to say, okay, cool. I know that as soon as my racers are past here, I need to get on my scooter. I need to run out to this side of the track. I need to get through the water, the mud. I need to get to here because this is going to be fantastic. They're going to zip past me. It's going to be the best shot. So now my
Wow.
body's already prepped and ready, saying, okay, Paulie, I got you. We're going to be going. We're going to be running here. I kind of can't run. I can kind of hobble, but let's keep it real here. But it's
Paul, you know what? And I love that. I absolutely love all of that. We're up against the time right now, man. We could have this conversation go on and on and on. Alex, I'm gonna give you the last word and then close off the show.
Sure. Well, we saw some pictures of Paulie, right, as I was sharing it here, but you can see more on Paulie's website, Plewa.com, PAULYPLEWA.com, PauliePlewa.com. But we can also find you on Instagram, and I think this is the handle, PauliePlewa 771, 771 being your race number.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
So, Paulie, thank you so much for being with us. We will continue chatting right after the show. Please stay on, and we might get some extra content for our YouTube channel and LinkedIn page and Facebook group. Roger, why don't you give us the tagline for the season, because I sometimes get it wrong.
Well, first of all, again, thank you, Paulie, for coming on. This has been a long time coming. We are happy that you came, shared your story, shared your experiences, shared your expertise, and gave our listeners an inside depth into who you are, the recovery and the resilience of the man himself. We appreciate you. We're going to have a conversation afterwards, but for now, we're going to close off the show by saying what we always say. We hope that the conversation continues wherever you may be, and whether you agree or disagree, you can always find Great Convos. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.